Alrighty. Hey everybody, Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy, and today what we're doing, as you can see by the title, the top 10 reasons why you should not retire in Korea. And this is going to get pretty interesting because, yeah, there's a lot of people, and granted, it's a small segment of society that wants to come and retire in Korea, and usually it's those people who are married to a Korean spouse, somebody who has Korean ancestry. Perhaps they did military service, or maybe they worked in the corporate world and spent some time in Korea, or maybe they ended up coming here on an exchange, kind of like a high school exchange type of thing, or they came and taught English and they met that special someone. And over the years, they've kind of gotten to the point of where they said, you know what we want to do is we want to retire in Korea. And yeah, that's a small segment of society that does that. And especially when you talk about the visa options, it's not like Thailand, it's not like Costa Rica or other countries where they have retirement visas. There's a lot of different things that are going on, but there are 10 top reasons of why you should not retire in Korea, and we're going to talk about that today. One word of caution is I'm noticing that there is a big lag in what I see as I'm recording and streaming this. So if that's the case and the video and the audio don't sync up, I apologize for that. I'm not sure why. Had a new Mac update and had some crazy things going on. But let's go ahead and we will jump into the reasons here. First thing we're going to take a look at is number one, significant language barrier. Korean is a difficult language for English speakers to learn. Even though it is fairly easy to learn, there are some differences, and especially if you're not adept to learning languages, that can be a problem. But the problem can be overcome by using your smartphone, translation apps, so on and so forth, so it's not that big of a deal. But in everyday daily life, if you're going to the bank, if you're going to government offices and things like that, healthcare, things that require translation on the run or on the go in your daily life, pulling out your phone is kind of problematic at times. And there are some places like hospitals, when you get healthcare, if they will have an international clinic, they will have translation services. But again, you're doing that third party, speak English, person translates it into Korean, talks to the healthcare provider, goes back to that person, comes to you from Korean to English, and there can be some things missed. So yeah, it's challenging to say, but even then, even if you know Korean and you can read, write, and speak it, I've noticed with a lot of older Koreans, even though I pronounce words and sentences 100% perfectly, older Koreans just can't get past the mental side of it, and they don't understand. Whereas if you talk with the younger children or younger people that have actually had more English training, they will understand you, but you will still run into that. And especially when we're talking about stores and shop owners and things like that, or even in public transportation. You might run into some older people and there will be that disconnect. So no matter what you do, you will run into language problems. This is not like the Philippines, where English is taught to everybody and everybody can kind of stumble through with English in the Philippines. Korea is a very homogeneous society, and it gets very interesting. Let's go on to number two. Number two, a significant language barrier. The shadow of North Korean geopolitical concerns. Daily life in South Korea is generally peaceful and there's not much of a problem, but we still have this ongoing conflict between North Korea and South Korea butting heads. Hasn't had anything happen since the Korean War for the most part. Little incursions and little situations like the North Korean sub and the North Korean Special Forces guys that came down and their sub ran aground, and they were trying to get back to North Korea, and they killed some military and civilian personnel. I was actually involved in part of the operation to help in that endeavor, and that was pretty wild. But there is some stress related to that, and so you need to be aware that there still are constant tensions going on between North Korea and South Korea, and especially as the leader up in North Korea, as he continues to age. We're hoping that dementia and senilities, being senile and things like that, doesn't come into play for an already unstable individual, and that can cause some concerns, especially with your families back home and things like that. I still get people that are like, oh, I heard that North Korea did this, and it's like, but it's like normal over here. It's like, it's just rattling the sabers. But for some people, they can't take that constant stress, or they perceive it as a constant stress, and it really, really bothers people. So if something like that bothers you, you might not want to retire in Korea. We'll talk about this one here. Number 3, complex visa residency requirements. Like we ended up saying, Korea does not have retirement-friendly visa options. And the only reason that my wife and I were able to retire here in Korea was because she has Korean ancestry, and she was able to get an F4 visa as a returning Korean. And she was born and raised in Korea. She became a U.S. citizen, and Korea has the F4 visa so that she can basically repatriate back to Korea. And then I get a visa because of her status as an F1. They're changing the name to an F3, but it's still the same thing. So it's not as friendly as other countries like Thailand, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, Philippines, definitely, Portugal, some of those countries where if you have a retirement income and you meet a certain age requirement and a small annual income, then they welcome you with open arms. Korea doesn't have that. And so we have to do it through this being the spouse of somebody who has Korean ancestry. And so that can be kind of daunting. If that bothers you, that might be another reason why you don't want to retire in Korea. And if you don't have a spouse that has Korean ancestry, then you definitely should not retire in Korea because it's not available to you. Maybe someday Korean will open up and make a retirement visa system. I see that on the horizon. I don't know when that will happen. Korea is a very homogenous society, and they don't really like foreigners. But with the super aging population that we have, the thing is that they're getting more foreigners to come over to Korea and work. And one of these days, I bet you they're going to have a retirement visa system, but I don't expect it anytime soon. I think it'll be far, far down the road. So let's go on to number 4. We look at number 4. It says cultural differences and potential social isolation. This is a big thing. Korean culture is deeply rooted in Confucianism, which, there's hierarchies and levels of people. The older you are, the more respect you get. The lower you are, or the less aged you are, not the less respect that you get, but with an older person, you definitely have to give more positions of authority. There is this hierarchy, and that's kind of interesting. As an older foreigner, integrating deeply and forming close local friendships can be different, especially without fluent Korean, and you will always feel like an outsider. This is really interesting because I think this touches on a matter that the isolation part happens no matter where you are. So think about it in the United States. If you're retired in the United States, the majority of other people are working. And so there's a sense of isolation. Unless you go to Florida and, live in a retirement community, or California where everybody's retired within that community, as soon as you retire, you're going to be isolated from the rest of the people who are working. And even more so in Korea because they work 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. It's in long hours. We have wife's family members who work a restaurant, work 6 days a week, and 12, 14 hours a day with not much time off. And so it's hard to establish relationships. It's even with close family, because they're still working and you're not. And so really you'll be isolated to the point where it's you and your spouse here in Korea. And if you need that social interaction, a lot of social interaction, Korea might not be a place for you to retire. If you're not comfortable in your own skin, being alone and not, having a lot of friends to engage with, Korea might not be the place for you. Let's take a look at number 5. It ends up navigating the healthcare system. While Korea has excellent modern healthcare, navigating as a foreigner, especially with the language barrier, can be daunting. Understanding insurance, finding English-speaking doctors for specialized care, and managing chronic conditions could be stressful, and that can be. And I think there's 2 categories. The first category are people who are retired military, like myself, who have TRICARE Overseas Select. And if you go to hospitals that are within the network that they process TRICARE paperwork, usually they will have an international office where they will have some nurses that will act as translators and go-betweens between you and the doctors. And they do a good job. We go to Good Morning Hospital in Pyeongtaek, which is just like 20 minutes away from where we live, and then like Samsung Medical Center, and of course the big ones up in Seoul. They have international clinics with translation services. They speak English. So navigating the healthcare and paying your bills isn't that daunting, but there's still those added steps to that. And again, when we're talking about, healthcare, if there was a serious issue, I wouldn't go to Good Morning Hospital. I would go to Seoul and go to one of the big 5 hospitals like Samsung Medical Center, St. Mary's, and the few others that are up there. They're more technologically advanced, they're better staffed, and they have bigger clinics. The best technology that I've seen here in Korea, awesome care. Whereas if you the further you get away from Seoul, you will notice a difference in care. It's a little bit different and maybe a little bit less than what you would get in the top 5 hospitals. They still do a good job, but yeah, you're going to see a marked difference in healthcare. And Korean healthcare has gotten to a point of where it's so overburdened because of the lack of doctors that doctors will see 100 patients a day. So that means that you might see your doctor for 2 or 3 minutes and then you're done. And with that short amount of time, they can miss some things. And then you add in the translation and, that burden of that. The healthcare system can be problematic, but it can also be problematic in the United States as well. We actually went to a bigger hospital. It was further away, but it ended up the care that was there was definitely something that we would not want to go do. So again, you're going to have to go through, you're going to have to do some shopping around. We thought if we went to this bigger hospital that was a little further away that had supposedly gotten good reviews, we didn't experience that, and I'm not going to name the name of the hospital. But you're going to have to do some shopping around. And if you have problems with driving 20, 30 minutes, maybe even going up to Seoul, taking a taxi and a train and a bus to get to a major hospital, if that's a problem for you, then you might not want to retire in Korea. Now, the second category of people are those who are not military retirees, whom TRICARE Overseas Selects covers all of their stuff. So now we have people that come and retire here, say they have a Korean spouse, but they're not military retirees. Now you have to get medical insurance. Korea requires its citizens to have national health care, and the Korean health care insurance comes out to around $100, $110 a month, if I remember correctly, depending on the exchange rate. But you're going to get managed care, and there's certain things that you can get done, and then certain things that you cannot get done unless you meet certain requirements. And some people have found that problematic here in Korea. Other people end up buying insurance or third-party insurance to cover those gaps, things like that. But once you get it, it's not too bad. But again, it comes down to healthcare insurance, how much you're going to pay, the benefit that you perceive that you're getting while in the Korean healthcare system. Some of the things are lacking, and if that's a sticking point for you, then you might not want to retire in Korea. Let's go on to number 6. Number 6 talks about, and it says, high-paced, high-pressure society is known for its Bali, hurry culture. Fast pace and inherent societal pressures might not align with a relaxed retirement lifestyle that many seek. This is absolutely true. And again, I think this adds to the isolation because everybody is busy. They're working 5, 6, 7 days a week, and you're retired. So, going to the store and the shop and trying to strike up a conversation is not something that a lot of places do because they're working. And it's not laid back like Hawaii or Philippines, where it's like we're on island time. It's not that, and so if even the taxi drivers are in such a rush, and I mean more than a rush, and unfortunately, with the high pressure and high paced society, taxi drivers, we're getting older and older seniors who are becoming taxi drivers that don't know how to drive, and they'll drive fast and hit speed bumps, and then you're just kind of jumping up in the back of the seat and hitting your head on the overhead of the taxi. We've experienced this more and more. So again, the high pressure and high pace society of Korea, if you're more of the laid back beach guy with the island vibes and we'll get to it whenever, Korea might not be the place for you. So let's continue on and go to number 7, air quality concerns. This is a big one here. Air quality concerns is big because the pollution has gotten worse and worse over time. Now, the first time I got to Korea was in 1988, just prior to the 88 Olympics, and I remember seeing lots of blue sky in Korea. Pollution wasn't that big of a deal, but over the decades, pollution has gotten worse, and it's mainly because of China. China and surrounding countries that burn rice fields don't have regulation on their pollution and output and so on and so forth. And all of that stuff drifts over here to Korea. And there's times in Korea where you will get emergency alerts telling you that the air quality is so bad that you should stay inside, that you should wear a mask. Korea has been wearing masks before COVID a long time because of the air quality. And so this can be a concern for retirees because if you have breathing issues, if you have asthma, if you have allergies, something along those lines, there will be times in Korea where the air quality is so bad that it will wreak havoc on you. Now, generally, I've been a pretty healthy person my entire life. But it wasn't until we got back to Korea that we were really, both my wife and I, we were really surprised at the amount of pollution that comes from other countries that comes into Korea, and it just kind of hovers over Korea during certain times of the year, which require you to purchase an air purifier for your home, a humidifier and dehumidifier, and going outside is, it is a concern. There's national weather alerts talking about air quality, telling seniors to not go out because the air quality is so bad. And those that have breathing problems should not go outside. So will this get better over time? I don't think so. I think it will only get worse as things go on. And if you have asthma or some breathing difficulties, then Korea might not be the place for you to retire. Let's take a look at number 8, which says limited English proficiency outside of tourist zones. While you can get by with English in tourist hotspots and with younger people, step outside of these bubbles and English proficiency drops dramatically. This affects everything from grocery shopping to dealing with local services. So, yeah, it's definitely a thing. And like I said, there's even if you speak Korean perfectly, I've seen older Koreans, middle-aged Koreans and older Koreans just not understand because they can't comprehend a foreigner speaking fluent Korean. So, yeah, it definitely makes traveling, it definitely makes doing tourism. Tourism isn't too bad. It's just getting to and from the places that you're trying to go to and interacting with people on public transportations, buying tickets, and so on and so forth, restaurants, hotels, can be really problematic. in everyday life. And like I said, even if you speak Korean, like my wife reads, writes, and speaks Korean, but she's been gone from Korea for so long that there's some problems. There's some difficulties in integrating back into Korea because the language has evolved over the last 20, 30, 40 years. So what used to be normal speaking Korean has changed and evolved over time. And so your Korean speaking spouse, and even if you speak Korean and learn Korean from a few decades ago, you will find it was a little bit different than what it is now, and that can be problematic. So that's another reason. Let's go on to number 9, which, let's see, we can get this down here. Social hierarchy and age-related expectations. While elders are generally respected, there are also specific societal expectations and roles. As a foreign retiree, you might find yourself in an ambiguous social position, not fully fitting into traditional Korean elderly roles. And this is absolutely true. This is one of those things where me as a foreigner, and for my wife as well, because we live the majority of our life away from Korea, we have been Americanized. And so we're more independent, we're more outgoing, we don't care about those societal roles and the hierarchy of the family as much. We believe and think the way we do, and that's it. In Korea, there seems to be a lack of being able to set boundaries. And if you're used to having boundaries and used to having rules and saying, hey, family just can't drop by unannounced or whatever it is, or I'm not going to pretend to be subservient to family members or other people because they are older than me, because they're idiots, just as an example, just putting it bluntly. It is definitely a very interesting thing. And so you will find some confrontation. You will find that you will butt heads with family, not so much Koreans outside of family, but mostly with family. If you're used to doing things the way you do things, you will need to set some boundaries with your Korean family. So if that is a huge thing and you can't overcome that, or you can't stand up and set your own boundaries, then you might not want to retire in Korea. The last thing we're going to take a look at, if we can get it up on the screen, is that when they're challenging climate extremes. This is probably the big one here, and it ends up that there are 4 distinct seasons in Korea. The problem is we're coming into Korea as the summer. Summer sucks. I know one couple that love the hot and humid. The hotter and the more humid it is, they love it. Unfortunately, that's not us. As soon as humidity gets high and it starts getting hot, nobody in my wife, and even in my wife's family, nobody likes Korean summers because they're oppressively hot and humid. You get into 80, 90 degree humidity, and 90 degree heat and so on and so forth. So for a period about 2.5 months, you just go from air conditioning place to air conditioning place. And unfortunately, Koreans can put up with a lot of hot and humid weather. And so it is not uncommon to be on public transportation during the summer where you will see the Korean bus driver wearing a vest and a long sleeve shirt and pants and a hat and the whole 9 yards. And you're like, good Lord, isn't he melting? And they won't have the air conditioner on. Same thing. They really love their heat. And in the winter times, that's another part of the time where the weather gets oppressive. Personally, I don't care about winter. I actually like it because I run hot anyway. So getting down to, freezing or just below freezing, 17 degrees Celsius or 15 or whatever, that doesn't really bother me because it's not a big deal. We used to walk a mile to go to the gym on post in that weather. It didn't bother me. But now we have a car and we have underground parking, so it's not that big of a deal. But the wind can get horrible. And for those 3-4 months where the weather is extremely cold, if you cannot put up with cold weather and sometimes cold, humid weather that gets into your bones, you might not want to retire in Korea. So yeah, a lot of different things can be an obstacle to retiring overseas, but there are some things that if you don't make compromises, that will be very problematic. Greg Phillips ends up saying Korea is considered a category 4 language, making it one of the 4 hardest languages to learn. Absolutely. It's interesting. It seems that Caucasians, people from the United States, have a hard time learning Asiatic languages or Asian languages, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, so on and so forth. And then conversely, the hardest language for Asian countries to learn is kind of English. So that's really interesting. But that's not, there's still some people who just jump right into it. For example, I can read Korean. My vocabulary is horrible, and I should probably spend more time studying Korean and learning more than I do now. I'm woefully deficient in it. But it's just one of those things where I really don't see the need for it. And that's just me personally. The wife takes care of a lot of things. Any things that I need to take care of, I always have the app on my phone. But if you don't like doing that, if you don't like learning languages, and that is a cause of frustration with you, you might not want to retire in Korea, let alone overseas in another country where they don't speak English. So, yeah, a lot of interesting information pops up when we talk about retiring overseas in Korea and why you should not retire in Korea. Another thing, I guess we'll add some bonus ones for this list, is if you cannot put up with the little obstacles and hurdles that you need to deal with here in Korea, like with banking. Transferring funds from your U.S. bank to a Korean bank, and having to eat wire transfer fees, or even if you use Wise, the money remittance app where you can transfer funds from a U.S. bank to a Korean bank, you're still going to incur some fees, even though they do have pretty low fees. Exchange rates. If you transfer money from a U.S. bank to a Korean bank, you're going to get dinged on the exchange rate. So if that's a big thing for you, we take our money out of the Navy Federal Credit Union Bank on the military base, which I have access to because I'm a military retiree. Then what happens is that we take it to a money exchange store where we get a better exchange rate than at the Korean banks. And then we go to the Korean bank and deposit our money into our accounts to pay for, property tax and phone service and utilities and whatever and stuff like that. But if that's a point of contention for you and you don't like doing that, it's kind of like stepping back a little bit. In the United States, everything is online bill pay, and boom, everything goes into your account, it goes out, and you're good to go. But having to do these extra steps or pay extra fees can be a little problematic and stressful at times. And if you really stress over things like that, or you're the type of person that can't let go of the fact that, damn it, every time I transfer money from my U.S. bank to the Korean bank, they always ding me, $50 for this and $30 for that. And then there's a fee of this and whatever. If that ruins, your peace, you might not want to retire in Korea. So, and another one I would add to this list, which would be, number 12, I think we're at, would be navigation in Korea. Actually, we'll do like 13. Navigation in Korea by car is really good. Their navigation systems are top notch, but trying to find places and trying to search, you're going to be limited if you only use English. So for example, I use Naver, and you can use Naver maps to search for places to go to, restaurants, cafes, stores, tourist areas, and things like that. And it's getting better over time by using English words to search for those places, but it's not fully integrated 100%. So if you don't know the Korean language, you will run into some problems. And even though a store is advertised with an English name, you might not be able to find it. So you'd have to find it in the Korean language and put it into Naver Maps or whatever Korean search engine that you're using, and find the directions that way. So that can, there's a few more hurdles that you need to do. Another one that I was going to talk about. What was the other one? Travel. I can't remember. It just slipped my mind. What was it? So we did all these things. Then we had navigation, travel. And it was a good one too. I just forgot it. Anyway, so that's what we got going on. The top 10 reasons why you should not retire, plus a couple more. There's probably other ones that people can come up with. And I think the biggest one that I've noticed, and that interacting with people and other people that are, say that they want to retire in Korea, is that if they have a big social identity, a big circle of friends in the United States or family, and they want to come and retire in Korea, but they can't handle that separation, or they can't handle the fact that they won't have a big social life like they did in the United States because you're in a foreign country and everybody's working and you're retired. That could be a big thing. And there are some people where, I've chatted with people and talked with them and said, hey, this might not be for you. What is your social life like? Well, we do this, this, and this, and this, and we're, and it's like you are heavily vested. You're, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that, of having a very active social life. It's actually a very good thing, and it's good for mental health and longevity, quality of life, and all those things. But even as you retire in the United States, you're going to face some isolation. And here in Korea, you're going to face even more isolation. And for the sheer fact that there are limited numbers of people who retire, foreigners like me and you, who retire in Korea, that the ability to have social groups shrinks down even more. So there's a less chance of doing what you did in the United States and Korea because there aren't that many of us here. So, if that's a big part of your life, or like I said, if you're stuck on family, that was the other one, family. If you're stuck on family, can you handle the separation away from your family? Can your family accept you going overseas and living in another country? For most people that have a Korean spouse, it's not a big problem because, if you're retired, your kids are probably, out from college and working, and they have their own lives, and they'll come and visit you from time to time or whatever. Or you go back to the States once or twice a year. But if you have real close family ties and you love the grandkids and you want to play with them every single day and you pick them up after school and you do this and that, when you come to Korea, you won't be able to do that. And so that separation from family might be extremely hard. And that's just a fact of life. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is actually awesome to have a good family life and to have those close family ties. Enjoy it. Excuse me. Enjoy that while you can. And then, after maybe they grow up, then you can go and retire overseas somewhere. It's just some of the things that you need to consider if you're going to retire overseas to Korea. So with that being said, we're going to finish this up. There are some reasons why you shouldn't retire in Korea. And one of the ways that you can find that out is by liking and subscribing to my channel. I go over some of the things, share our journey of being retired here in Korea. The problems with banking, it's different than the United States. Buying properties is different. Everything is a little bit different here in Korea. And if you can't be flexible to change, that might be another reason why you shouldn't retire overseas. So it's definitely a journey. But for those of us and people like me, and normally what I've found is we associate with folks that are kind of like us, or we're kind of like them, and we're on our own anyway. We're pretty much loners. There are some couples that we hang around with every once in a while, but they're kind of like us. They're outside the norm. They do their own thing. They set their own boundaries. They don't mind being alone or just being the two of them together and having a very, very small circle of friends. I've got maybe one or two friends here in Korea, and Yeah, that's not a big problem for me. And if I didn't have any friends here, I don't think that would be a problem for me as well because I'm pretty much a loner. I do well in big social situations, which isn't a big deal for me thanks to the military, but I don't mind being alone. And if you cannot handle being alone and that isolation, yeah, you might want to take some trips to Korea. You know, as a U.S. citizen, you can come to Korea for 90 days. Try, coming to Korea for a month and living and seeing what it's like. And don't live in the touristy areas. Get like an Airbnb, rent a place out for a month, and in an area where you might think you want to retire, and wander around. Go to the shops and the stores. See what life is like, everyday life. And because you'll have that honeymoon period. Okay, you'll have that honeymoon period. Ooh, we retired overseas. Oh, it's so exotic. It's so fun. And then eventually, things will settle down and you're just like, okay, another day in Korea. Let's do our daily stuff. And the newness wears off and it ends up being everyday life. And if you cannot be content with that everyday normal life and the isolation and having your own little routine of what you do, which might be different from the United States, yeah, that could be problematic. Oh, that's the thing. Shopping. Shopping is different here in Korea. Unless you read, write, and speak Korean and you're a master of Coupang and Naver and all of that stuff, shopping is very different here in Korea than in the United States. Amazon is so easy in the United States. I didn't realize how much I appreciated that until I got to Korea. Now, I can still order things on Amazon, but there are certain limits and size and so on and so forth. There are restrictions to what you can buy on Amazon and have it delivered to Korea, which is good. But some of the things that you could easily find in the United States, you can't find in Korea. And you would have to order them through somebody on Naver or Coupang, and they order it from overseas, and there's going to be a high markup, and you will see items that you could get in the United States that will be double or triple the price here in Korea because they get it, they ship it, they get it, they ship it to you, and they have their markup and they have the shipping costs and so on and so forth. So that is the reason why, and there could be some value-added taxes, some import taxes, and things like that. So that is why you'll see some of these things, double or triple in price, which is, very, very problematic. Other shopping problems. We have Home Depot, we have Lowe's. We have a number of home improvement stores, and where I was big on doing home improvement. I did property rehabs and rentals, worked on over 60 properties. We had our own portfolio and so on and so forth. Basically rebuild houses, scrap everything and rebuild everything. So I could go to Home Depot and I could get the kitchen sink and the tubs and the toilets and the tile and the lumber and the furniture, the drywall, all of that stuff without problem. They don't have that here in Korea. They have separate stores. And again, trying to find the stores, even if you speak Korean and if you've been gone for a long time, it is hard to find the plumbing store. It is hard to find the tile and this and that. And even then, you're going to all these different places. And then you have to buy tools to do those things. And, unless you're going to be doing rehabs a lot, is it really worth your time to do that? We just ended up doing a bunch of tile work. And instead of doing it myself and having to buy all the tools because I probably would never use them again, we just ended up hiring somebody. And you can shop around and get some good deals on tile and labor costs. It's not bad at all. But still, there are things that I wish I could do that I can't, just for the fact that the logistics of shopping and getting home improvement items or putting in cabinetry or the whole 9 yards is way different than the United States. And I'm really, I could redo kitchens and bathrooms and tile and paint, drywall, windows. I could do all that stuff. Plumbing work, electrical, not going to say I rewired a house or anything. without an electrician. But that was in another time. But yeah, there's shopping here in Korea is very different. Even getting things like glue. When I do my 3D printing stuff, which I do a bunch of that, trying to find the glue that I could easily get in the United States at a Home Depot, a Sears, or Walmart even, I can't find it here in Korea because it costs double, sometimes triple. And simple items that you take for granted in the United States, it's like, seriously, they got to order it from overseas, and that's going to cost me extra. If that grinds your goat or gets up your nose, yeah, you might not want to retire in Korea. So there's little things that end up coming up and popping up, and if you cannot be flexible and you cannot compromise, you could have a hard time retiring overseas, regardless if it's Korea or some other country. So take that into consideration. Alrighty, Greg Phillips ends up saying another well done episode. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. I try to do my best. And as I'm not as educated as Greg is, Greg's an awesome guy, intelligent, super smart, just kind of sharing the information and the things that we've gone through. We end up, let's see, we got Tacticus 1979. Yep, that is the expat life. Yes, there will always be some areas that you're going to compromise when you're an expat overseas, regardless of the country. And, my time in the military and being in different countries and things like that, moving around. I think during my whole time in the military, I think we stayed in one place 2-3 years. Yeah, you have to do what Tactus 1976. You had to be a former Marine to adapt and overcome to your new locale. Face green, smiling. Yes, improvise, adapt, and overcome. And the military does that. I was actually Army. But military people that move around and do all that stuff, it ends up that they can more easily adapt and are more flexible and can compromise and accept things when they're in a different country versus the average United States citizen, which, there's people, that I chatted with where a guy went down to Costa Rica and he tried to retire down there. And it was like, yeah, I can't handle the bureaucracy. I couldn't handle, he had to go back to the United States because he couldn't compromise. He couldn't be flexible and change his way of thinking. And he was an older gentleman. And there's nothing wrong with that. You do you. And you retire, and if you realize that you cannot deal with whatever things that you don't like dealing with overseas, stay in the United States or find another country. And the thing is, you need to do what's good for you and do what makes you happy and makes you content. And that goes a long way when it talks about quality of life and how you live and just, not a stress-free life, but a managed stress life into where you're content and you can enjoy things and be at peace with yourself. I think that's what it really comes down to. So, yeah, that's what it is. There is the video, the top 10 reasons why you should not retire in Korea. And you could probably apply these to any overseas country, but that's what we've got going on. So with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw this video to a close. The one thing that I would ask you to do is to like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. That would be a solid. But if you want to do me one better, the scrolling ticker down here are all the people who have bought me coffee, and they're awesome, and I have much respect for them. And I buy coffee for other people. So if you do that, you'd have much respect and you would be on this list as well. If you have comments, concerns, questions, tips, suggestions, whatever it is, you can 100% contact me by this email address right here, official thevariedlife@gmail.com. You can find it in the description box down below. And I answer every single email, even from the crazy people. And if you're doing hobbies and retired military or living overseas, whatever it is, we're all crazy to some degree. So welcome to the family. With that said, my latte is getting cold. So again, be sure to smash and like that button, subscribe, all of that to come be informed of the next videos that pop up. Sometimes I do 3D resin printing, FDM printing videos, miniature painting, but I also do the retired in Korea stuff to keep me busy. And matter of fact, I got to cut this early because we're going to go to the gym today. But that's what we have. So for all the people that came and watched, I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. And again, like and subscribe, and we can see you on the next video. Peace. Good.